When Diane Winters sabotaged my disabled daughter's pulse monitor, she thought she was dealing with just another family to bully. She didn't realize I was a retired brigadier general who had faced warlords and dictators. Now she would learn what happens when you mess with a military father's vulnerable child. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like in. The first confrontation happened just 3 days after we moved in. "Your daughter's medical equipment is too noisy," said Diane Winters, standing at my door with her arms crossed. "Several neighbors have complained." I looked at this woman, perfectly styled hair, designer clothes, and a gold HOA president pin gleaming on her lapel, and tried to remain calm. We had barely finished unpacking. "My daughter Emma has a severe neuromuscular condition," I explained. "Her equipment is medically necessary. It's literally keeping her alive." Diane's face showed no sympathy. "Well, this is Pine Meadows, not a hospital. The noise ordinance clearly states. The Americans with Disabilities Act supersedes your HOA rules," I interrupted. "I've already submitted the proper medical documentation." "We'll see about that," she snapped, turning on her heel. "The board will review your situation." I closed the door, my hands shaking with anger. After 25 years as a military officer, rising to the rank of brigadier general before retirement, I had faced enemy fire with less anxiety than what this woman stirred in me. Because now the target wasn't me, it was my 16-year-old daughter. Emma had been through enough. Born with a rare condition that progressively weakened her muscles, she relied on a wheelchair and several medical devices, including a vital pulse monitor and ventilator that helped her breathe at night. The pulse monitor was crucial. It alerted us immediately if her heart rate dropped or became erratic, a common danger with her condition. Despite her challenges, she remained positive, with bright eyes and a clever mind that made me proud every day. We had chosen Pine Meadows specifically for its single-level homes and proximity to a good hospital. The realtor never mentioned the HOA was run by someone who saw disability as an inconvenience to property values. That night, I explained the situation to Emma as gently as I could. "Don't worry, Dad," she said, adjusting her oxygen tube. "Maybe she just needs to get to know me." Her optimism nearly broke my heart. After losing her mother to cancer 3 years ago, Emma had developed a resilience that sometimes made me forget how vulnerable she truly was. The following week, things escalated. Diane sent an official notice claiming Emma's wheelchair ramp, professionally installed before we moved in, violated HOA aesthetic standards. The letter demanded its removal within 30 days, with a $200 daily fine thereafter. I filed for an emergency exemption and reached out to a disability rights attorney. Meanwhile, Emma tried to make friends in the neighborhood, wheeling herself to the community park when her strength allowed. One evening, Emma returned home in tears. "What happened, sweetheart?" I asked, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "Mrs. Winters told me I shouldn't use the park," she whispered. "She said my wheelchair damages the grass and scares other children." Something cold and hard formed in my chest, the kind of focused anger I hadn't felt since my last combat deployment. "She said what?" "She told everyone I shouldn't be allowed in common areas because I'm a liability," Emma continued, her voice breaking. "Dad, do I make people uncomfortable?" I held her hands. "Absolutely not. You have every right to be there." That night, I sent emails to every HOA board member, outlining the harassment. Most didn't respond. The 2 who did suggested I work things out with Diane directly. The situation worsened when Emma developed pneumonia, a dangerous complication with her condition. For 3 days, I barely slept, monitoring her breathing and administering medications. When her oxygen levels stabilized, I finally felt we were past the worst. Then, I caught something disturbing on our home security camera. Diane Winters was at our electrical box outside, fumbling with something in her hands. I rushed outside, but she was already walking away briskly. "What were you doing?" I called after her. She turned, startled but quickly composing herself. "Just inspecting. It's an HOA responsibility to ensure proper maintenance." Something didn't feel right. I checked the electrical panel, but everything looked normal. I went back inside, uneasy but focused on Emma's care. An hour later, Emma's pulse monitor began screeching. The reading showed her heart rate plummeting dangerously, but when I looked at her, she seemed fine, her color normal. "Dad, I feel okay," she said, confused by the alarm. I checked the device. It was malfunctioning, showing impossible numbers. Then her ventilator shut down completely. The backup battery indicator showed it was completely drained, which was impossible. I had checked it that morning. "Something's wrong with the power," I said, checking other outlets. The electricity to the house was working, but somehow the dedicated circuit for Emma's medical equipment had been tampered with. The pulse monitor, her lifeline that tracked every heartbeat and warned us of danger, was now useless. Without it, we wouldn't know if her condition suddenly deteriorated, a constant risk with her illness. I connected her equipment to a different circuit temporarily and called an electrician for an emergency visit. What he discovered chilled me to the bone. "Someone deliberately crossed these wires," he said, pointing to the circuit breaker. "It caused a power surge that would fry sensitive medical equipment. This wasn't an accident." I immediately thought of Diane at our electrical box. The security footage confirmed my suspicions. She had deliberately sabotaged the circuit that powered Emma's life-saving equipment. She had literally cut my daughter's lifeline, the pulse monitor that warned us of any dangerous changes in her condition. Without it, Emma could suffer cardiac distress without warning. I called the police immediately, showing them the security footage and the electrician's report. They took the matter seriously, especially when the electrician confirmed that the tampering could only have been deliberate. While waiting for the police to complete their investigation, I transferred Emma to the hospital. I wasn't taking any chances with her safety. That evening I received another HOA violation notice. This one claimed Emma's medical equipment had caused electrical disturbances that damaged neighborhood systems, with a $1,500 fine for infrastructure repair. It was the final straw. The next morning I did something I hadn't done since retirement. I put on my full military dress uniform, blue jacket adorned with service ribbons, gold general stars gleaming on my shoulders. Then I walked to Diane's house and rang her doorbell. When she opened the door, her smug expression faltered. "What is this supposed to be, some kind of intimidation?" She recovered quickly. "Halloween isn't for months." "Brigadier General James Walker, United States Army, retired," I said formally. 25 years of service, including 4 combat deployments." She blinked rapidly, processing the uniform and rank. "I've led men and women into battle," I continued. "I've negotiated with warlords and dictators. And never, in all my years facing America's enemies, have I encountered someone willing to endanger a disabled child to maintain their petty authority." "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "The tampering with our electrical system that disabled my daughter's pulse monitor, her lifeline. The security footage shows you at our electrical box yesterday afternoon." Her face flushed. "I was just doing an inspection." The electrician confirmed the wiring was deliberately crossed to cause a power surge. "The police have the security footage and the electrician's report. What you did wasn't just vandalism, it was attempted murder." I stepped closer. "My daughter relies on that pulse monitor to alert us if her heart rate becomes dangerously low or erratic. Without it, she could die without warning. You cut her lifeline. Are you threatening me?" Her voice rose shrilly. "I'm informing you as a courtesy that I've called an emergency HOA meeting for tomorrow evening. I'll be presenting evidence of your actions to the entire board and community. You might want to bring legal representation." As I turned to leave, she grabbed my arm. "You can't do this. Do you know who my husband is?" "He's the vice president of—" "Mrs. Winters," I interrupted, gently removing her hand. "I've faced artillery fire in Baghdad. Your husband's corporate title doesn't impress me." The emergency meeting the next evening had perfect attendance. Every homeowner in Pine Meadows crowded into the community center, with Diane sitting stiffly at the board table, a nervous-looking man I assumed was her lawyer beside her. I presented my case methodically as I'd been trained to do in military briefings. I showed the security footage of Diane tampering with our electrical box. I presented the electrician's report confirming deliberate sabotage. I explained how the surge had destroyed Emma's pulse monitor, the critical device that tracked her heartbeat and warned us of potential cardiac distress. "Mrs. Winters didn't just vandalize our property," I concluded. "She cut my daughter's lifeline, the device that warns us when Emma's heart is in trouble. Without it, we wouldn't know if she needed emergency intervention until it might be too late." The room erupted. Other residents began sharing their own stories of Diane's tyrannical behavior over the years, selective enforcement of rules, personal vendettas disguised as violations, intimidation of anyone who challenged her. By meeting's end, the board had voted to remove Diane as president, pending a formal investigation. They rescinded all fines against us and approved permanent accommodations for Emma's needs. As people filed out, many stopped to introduce themselves to Emma, who I'd brought along in her wheelchair. Neighbors offered help, children invited her to activities, and several families brought over meal baskets during the following days. The community wasn't the problem, Diane was. 3 weeks later, I received a certified letter. It was a formal apology from the HOA board, along with notification that Diane had been criminally charged with vandalism, reckless endangerment, and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The board was implementing new procedures to ensure all medical accommodations would be properly handled in the future. More surprisingly, there was a second letter, from Diane herself. Her handwriting was shaky. General Walker. What I did was inexcusable. I've had time to reflect on my actions and am deeply ashamed. My behavior toward your daughter came from a place of ignorance and prejudice I didn't recognize in myself until now. Nothing can justify endangering Emma's life by tampering with her pulse monitor. I've accepted the consequences of my actions, including the criminal charges I'm now facing. This doesn't change what happened, but I want you to know I'm truly sorry. Diane Winters. I showed the letter to Emma, who was reclined on the porch swing, breathing in the fresh spring air. We had purchased a new, advanced pulse monitor system with multiple backups and better alarms. "Do you think she means it, Dad?" she asked. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But this isn't about forgiveness, it's about making sure she never does this to anyone else." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "When I was in the hospital, my nurse told me something. She said sometimes people are cruel because they're afraid of what they don't understand." I sat beside her, marveling at her wisdom. That's probably true. "Maybe Mrs. Winters was afraid of me," Emma continued. "Not because I'm scary, but because I reminded her that bodies can break, that anyone could end up needing help someday." "When did you get so smart?" I asked, squeezing her hand. She grinned. "Must be those General genes." 6 months later, Pine Meadows had transformed. Our house now had solar panels with battery backup, approved unanimously by the new HOA board. The community park featured accessible pathways, and a monthly neighborhood gathering celebrated residents of all abilities. Diane and her husband sold their house and moved away, facing both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit. The family that purchased it included a boy about Emma's age who used forearm crutches, a coincidence that felt like poetic justice. Emma's health improved with the reduced stress. She enrolled in community college courses online and joined a virtual support group for teens with similar conditions, blossoming with new confidence. One evening, as autumn leaves fell around us, Emma's respiratory therapist visited for her monthly checkup. "Her lung function is significantly better," she reported. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." "It's not what we're doing," I replied. "It's what we're not having to do anymore. We're not fighting for basic rights. We're not constantly looking over our shoulders." Later, watching Emma laughing with neighborhood friends from her wheelchair on our porch, I reflected on our journey. Throughout my military career, I'd fought for freedom and justice in distant lands. But the most important battle I'd ever fought was right here, ensuring my daughter could live with dignity in her own home. The HOA president who tried to cut Emma's lifeline had instead helped forge something stronger, a community that recognized the value of every life, regardless of ability. And in doing so, she'd learned a hard lesson about the determination of a father who happened to be a general. Some wars are fought with weapons. Others are fought with courage, persistence, and unwavering love. In the end, those are the ones that matter most.